a second. We'll power through it, but.
All right, guys, we're live. We're having a little bit of tech stuff happening on our end, so if we freeze or whatever, we'll power through as best we can. And welcome to the Daily Live. Claire Wasserman here, founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform, global community, and of course, a book that is all about helping women earn more and live better. I had a moment of pause where I didn't experience imposter syndrome, but yes, blanked on what it is my company actually does, as if I don't say it enough. If you've been following along, you've seen that I host these lives on LinkedIn. I've been doing it now for about a month, but it used to just be me sharing lessons, and I got bored and lonely. So now it is even better because I am joined by all different kinds of coaches, women who focus on helping other women in different capacities of their life. But again, with that shared mission of earning more and living better. And I'm so excited to have Shivani Berry here today. She is the CEO and founder of Arise Leadership, formerly Ascend. At some point, I'm assuming you will drop that. But I know when you make a name change, for any of my ladies out there who had a maiden name, you know what it is with the parentheses. What's very cool is that program graduates from Ascend, they take on more strategic responsibility, they get promoted faster, and they have a voice at the table. And when I reached out to, all these different coaches for these lives, I said to them, listen, I want you to set the topic. What is the thing that you are most passionate about right now, most excited to talk about and to help women with? And for you, Shivani, you said imposter syndrome and moving up with confidence. So I would love, first and foremost, welcome. And I would love to hear from you why you chose this topic, and then we will dive right into it.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm a big fan of Ladies Get Paid and excited for our conversation today. So I chose imposter syndrome. So Arise Leadership, we offer an online leadership program for women. Our mission is to elevate 1 million women into leadership. And our graduates are it's been like just truly amazing seeing our graduates from Fortune 500 companies get promoted. And a big part of this is self-doubt, the feelings of imposter syndrome. Because if you don't, that is often the biggest blocker for people. And so, seeing the work that you do at Ladies Get Paid, I thought this would be a really relevant conversation because we're both really focused on how do we help more women get a seat at the table and get what they deserve.
Yes.
And so that's been that was really why top of mind. It's a really popular topic for us in the leadership program. And then with the women I work with. And so thought this would be helpful here too.
Yes, absolutely. I would love if you could maybe let's just define what it is or what it isn't. And then I would love to hear your thoughts on, this might be a kind of next level conversation here, but there's been a maybe more recent backlash or conversation around let's stop telling women they have imposter syndrome. I'm sure you have many thoughts on that. So yeah, let's begin maybe with the definition of what exactly imposter syndrome is.
Sure. So it's really that feeling or belief that everybody else got to where they are because they deserve it. Mm-hmm. But we got there, or I got there because I got lucky. Everyone got there on merit, but I just got there because I was in the right place, right time. I just got lucky. And so it could show up for us in many different ways. Maybe you were telling ourselves, I got lucky. I'll get caught. Maybe you're sitting in a meeting with people who have more domain expertise. You're like, oh, I don't know if I should make my comment right now because what if I don't have all the information? So, and something that I've struggled with many times in my career. For example, when I got promoted to become a people manager for the first time, I had so much self-doubt and anxiety about it because I was like, I've never done this role before. I'm not ready. That instead of stepping into the role with confidence, I just stepped into it with a lot of self-doubt. So much so that when I got the promotion, I didn't ask for the salary raise to match my increased responsibility because I was afraid that if I asked for more money, the company would reconsider the promotion. They'd be like, oh, she's not worth it if we have to pay more, maybe even demote me. And so, in that moment, I was so much self-doubt. A couple months later, I realized that I am actually pretty good at what I do. And it was actually really normal for the level I was at because I was new. Yes, I still had a huge learning curve, but given where I was at, I was doing actually really great. And so I got the courage to ask for that promotion, for that salary raise. And my manager said yes to me, which I was really ecstatic for. But it was also just a good reminder of how much self-doubt can stop me. And that's why, I really think it's an important topic to talk about. And really a big aha moment in that in that experience was like, everybody is new to people management in the beginning. It sounds so obvious saying this out loud right here, but it wasn't to me back then. And I think that's some surfaces for so many of us around it. So, it continues to show up in different parts of my life now as a founder. I've grown up in Silicon Valley. And so when I think about founder, I think about white male VC backed, and I am none of those. I'm a woman of color. I've self-funded a business, and there it's really, but then I have to like think about, realize this is not a fair comparison. When other people are talking about how much money they've raised or who are their investors and all these logos, I have to remind myself, like, we're building completely different businesses. And I'm so proud of what we've achieved. I'm so proud of the thousands of graduates that we've had who've gotten promoted, who've gotten recognition, who've been moved up, how we've been featured in Wall Street Journal, been trusted by Fortune 500 companies. And so just continue to remind myself of that. And so it's really, I think it's a journey around it, around the imposter syndrome and like managing that self-doubt within.
It's so interesting that you defined it originally when we started talking as feeling like it's luck, right? We just, not giving ourselves credit, right? It's like external circumstances, when in fact, women, and especially women of color, have the least amount of quote luck. Like they've had to overcome so much conscious bias and unconscious bias. So if we're going to define imposter syndrome as the feeling of luck, I'm here because of others, and that seems to me men should really be feeling the imposter syndrome. So why do we have this?
Yeah. Why are we feeling this feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I think people feel it regardless of gender. I believe more, in my experience, more on average, more women feel it than men. Part of this is what you were talking to earlier, the societal pressure. There is a really great article in Harvard Business Review, Stop Telling Women That They Have Imposter Syndrome. And that really touches upon an important topic around bias, like gender, socioeconomic, racial biases that happen where it's like, you're not good enough. We're just told, I can be in a room as a woman of color in a room with white men, and even if they explicitly say it or not, I could feel like I don't belong. And so that is a part of the reason. Part of it's our upbringing for most of us and the generation we've grown up in. It's like, we as girls, we're taught to be nice and don't make mistakes and don't get your dress dirty. And so it's just like that constant like performing. And even right now we have the term super mom, where it's like you have to do everything perfect. So I'm a new mom. I have a daughter who turns 1 on Sunday, and this has been a journey for me. And it's like, but there's always so much pressure to like be so on top of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really where it's come from. And then like that, just like, and then there's internal, like, that we're tackling about like not having confidence in our abilities and this pressure to be perfectionists when you actually don't need to be.
Yeah. I think perfectionism is the other side of the same coin. And if you experience imposter syndrome, you probably also have perfectionism, right? Because it is, I think oftentimes the pressure of, I have to see it to believe it. Meaning if I haven't done this thing before, to your example of, I wasn't a people manager, so how could I feel confident that I could do it, right? It's almost like a lack of faith in oneself. You need like hard, tangible, factual proof that you can do it. And then so you're sort of like getting over that like faith gap with yourself a little bit. How do you counsel, like what are some practical first steps that people can take who might be feeling really paralyzed by this stuff?
Yeah. So an exercise that's been really helpful for me and our graduates is asking yourself 3 reflection questions. So first, asking yourself, what do I feel an imposter about? Often identifying as half the battle. So maybe for you, it is that you come from a non-traditional background. Maybe you don't have the same skills as everybody else in the room. Like maybe you're talking to people who are very technical, but you don't have a technical background. Maybe no one in the room looks like you, for whatever factor that is, like racial, gender, age, whatever that is that makes you feel really self-conscious. So identifying that is really important. Second, asking yourself, who am I comparing myself to? When I got promoted people manager, I was comparing myself to my manager who had 20 years of people management experience. That's not a fair comparison by any means. But spoiler alert, we often end up comparing ourselves to a black hole. We don't even know who we're comparing ourselves to. We're just like, we're just not good enough. So asking yourself and pushing yourself to think that, that's often such a big aha moment for the women in Arise's leadership program, because they're like, oh, just like I'm comparing myself to my manager. I'm comparing myself to this celebrity or leader at the top of my company. Or yeah, I don't even know who I'm comparing myself to. It's just this mythical figure that just makes me feel like I'm not good enough. And the third part of this is ask yourself, what are 3 reasons why my manager would say that I'm qualified for this role? We can be really hard on ourselves. So taking that third party perspective, and you can ask your manager yourself, or look back at performance reviews, look back at like feedback that you've been given, and pull that out for why would they say that you're qualified, and then make sure you write it down. Because in moments when you start spiraling, you're going to just get in your head. So if you have written it down, then you can easily refer back to it to be able to further reflect on it, and like just help you rationally think through like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm having a moment and I need to and be like, okay, I'm actually more qualified than I'm giving myself credit for.
I like that. And in this, who am I comparing myself to? That also, I think, is a good reminder of the importance of context, which you were speaking to earlier when you were looking, comparing your company to other people's companies, going, wait a minute, hold on. Like, we don't have the same funding / do we even have the same mission? Context is everything. And we're so close to ourselves. It's really hard to see context. That requires perspective. Do you have any, and I apologize, I didn't give you an advance warning of this question, but are there any client success stories or anybody who comes to mind, or even yourself, where you could maybe walk me through an experience that, you saw them start at a place where they really struggled with that self-doubt and then were able to not just like get over it, because I don't think you necessarily get over these things. It's really, how do you work with it and through it?
Exactly. Yeah, I have so many. It's been really incredible to watch how our graduates have grown and really taken up space and like believe themselves. I think that's one of the most beautiful things to watch someone really own. So a couple of examples pop into mind. First is Asta, one of our graduates. So she is an engineer, and when she joined the program, she shared herself was that she typically shied away from speaking up in meetings with senior leaders or even with like her peers often, because she wasn't sure if she had that perfect answer, and she didn't want to take up too much of people's time. What she would do instead is after the meeting ended, she would pull aside the meeting organizer and share her ideas. But of course, Asta is a rock star. She has great ideas. And so then the meeting organizer would be like, oh yeah, wait, this is a really good idea. Let's take it back to the team. So then what would end up happening is then it would reopen the discussion that was taking place in the meeting. And so while Asa's ideas were often incorporated, one, she wasn't getting the full proper recognition for her ideas because she wasn't bringing herself up in meetings. And two, it was actually creating a lot of inefficiencies in the process, which people don't appreciate. And that wasn't her goal. She wanted to help the team be successful, to drive a bigger impact. So what she was able to use in the program, actually week 1, she was able to use our storytelling tools around, and she was able to help her think through in advance, like how to present her idea, how should you structure a comment in a meeting, and then also the reflection exercises that I just shared in combination to realize like, oh wait, okay, I am actually much more qualified to speak on this topic than I'm giving myself credit for, and here's how I'm prepared to like actually go and make this comment in a meeting, share my idea in a way that actually lands with people. And so then she started like by week 1, like week 2, she started like every time coming to meetings and being able to like articulate her ideas. And I'm especially proud of that story, and it's representative of many others where like just that change didn't happen so fast because we have a lot of potential in us. And it's that belief in yourself and taking those steps, because not just being able to gain confidence, like actually what is like a secret confidence booster is knowing how to influence, knowing how to be able to present your ideas or how to share out your ideas in a way that actually gets people excited, even dominant personalities. And so understanding how to do that is really important. Another context around, helping you, like another example around this is Katerina at Google. So while she was in the program, she was interviewing to get promoted to a more senior role at Google. And, she shared that typically I would shy away from speaking up about myself because I didn't want to feel like I was bragging or showing off. And also she wasn't fully aware of like, how do I present my story in a way that like lands with the hiring manager? So she was able to use our framework to get buy-in, to think in advance about, here is what my audience cares about. Here's what their concerns are going to be. here's my impact, here's the things I've worked on, and here's how I need to like storytell my like and sell myself in a way that like actually is going to resonate with them. And knowing that she was prepared for that gave her confidence in herself, and she was able to talk about her wins in a much more impactful way, so much so that she got promoted and credited the tools in helping her get promoted. So those have been some stories about like pretty fast changes by just knowing how to influence, and then being able to like and recognizing like here's what I feel self-doubt about, to be able to like proactively overcome it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like this kind of distinction of, it's not just a feeling of confidence, because I think that's what people think this is all about. Like, if I just feel confident, no, it's about an action. It's confidence expressed through action, through implementation. And one way that you just defined it was influence. Can we talk a little bit about all the ways that you can see influence, especially if you're somebody who maybe doesn't have much, seeming influence, right? You're pretty junior or you're new. What are ways that we can either shift the way that we look at it, and also how to take that action towards building blocks of influence?
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you brought up that part about, especially if you're someone junior, because that's a myth I want to debunk. Regardless of how junior you are in your career, you have to know how to influence, be able to get your team on board with your manager. This is actually a big reason that I quit my job in tech leadership to found Arise, because when I was moving up to management, I learned how to rally stakeholders, how to advocate for myself, all by making a ton of mistakes. I even went to Harvard Business School to get my MBA, but I didn't learn how to do it in the classroom. I learned it on the job. How do you lead an influence? And the thing I want to like, and I don't think I was fully aware, like you said, like as a junior person, I was like, I don't have that seniority. I'm not a manager. I'm not, but actually it has to start from early on. So let me give you an example. Like, you are talking to your team is brainstorming on how to build a certain product, or what should a marketing campaign look like, or what should this project feature look like. In that, like, you can throw out an idea, and you can get your team, you can like convince your team of this idea. I mean, we're all like brainstorming with our team. We're always like, or maybe share a piece like, here's how I think we should do this process. That is influence. So where you start, even earlier in your career, is convincing your team to support this idea or this process of improvement that you have, or asking your manager around, like, let's say you're asking to go to a conference, that you need to be able to influence to help them see like, here's the benefit of it for the team of why you should go. Or let's say you're telling your manager, here's what I'm working on. Now, how many times have we been questioned by managers like, oh, is that like the right thing for you to work on? Or should it really be taking this much time? Like, can't you do this faster? Now, we get that question no matter what seniority you're in, but you have to be able to influence. You have to be able to like proactively think about that and be like, yeah, I'm going to go into my one-on-one with my manager, and they're probably going to be like, how can we get this done faster? And so you're practically thinking about their concerns. And then when you're sharing out, here's what I'm working on, you're able to articulate your work in a way and position in a way that actually makes your manager realize like, this is the right priority that you should focus on. And this is the right path that you're taking. You are doing this in the best way possible. And so that's why you have to start so early on and influencing around like getting support for your recommendations, changing processes, asking for a raise, asking for a promotion also is influence. You're trying to get your manager, you're convincing your manager like, hey, I am ready for this. And then you're making them an ally for you, because majority of the conversations that happen about our work, whether or not we get promoted, whether or not we get that raise, happen in rooms that we're not in.
Yeah.
So you have to create the allies outside of that. Again, all about influence. There's a problem that happens. You have to influence them to help them understand, like, here's the problem. Here's why it's critical to solve. Or maybe you're telling them like, hey, I know this is a problem, but don't freak out. I got this under control. You have to be able to get their buy-in and be able to calm their nerves, but you have to know how they operate. And that's a learned skill. Like, that's why I was like, I need to start this, because you need to know the step-by-step and how to go do that. And the better you are doing that, the more strategic projects you'll be given, the more people will want to work with you, because you're good at getting things done.
Yeah. And I think a good reminder for anybody who's feeling particularly nervous about, I'm going to gear up for a salary negotiation. I've never done this before. I've never done it on this scale. You're negotiating all the time in your life. And because you just said it, you gave a bunch of examples. You use the word influence, but it's also negotiating.
100%.
It's expressing something that you want in and integrating what the other person wants and figuring out a solution between the two of them. What would you say? Well, do you think women are naturally resistant? I mean, we don't need to get into like nature versus nurture or anything like that, but like, why, maybe even speak from a personal place if you'd like, are we set up to be good at this, or do we need to get over a big hurdle in this desire to influence and to self-advocate?
Yeah, I don't think we're naturally set up to be good at this. It's not something that we have been told in the past or like taught, but I do think it's like on an individual basis, I do think it's something that people can learn pretty quickly. Like, I've seen this happen thousands of times. Like our leadership program is only 6 weeks, and just like the change people are getting within a couple of weeks has been mind blowing even for me. So I do believe like once you have like the clear steps, like here's how you go influence, here's how you need to go advocate for yourself, like you can go do that. But it does pop up. Like for example, one of the women that was in the program, she was considering applying to a new role. And she was like, the job description for this role requires 3 years of experience, but I only have 2.5 years. Should I apply? And I was like, yes, 200%. Yes, apply. Yeah. And so same thing goes for, salary. We're so afraid of, I hear this so often, like, what if they think I'm greedy? What if they say no to me, then it's a failure. Right. And actually, if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. Right. So, my personal life slogan or what I live by is you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So I have asked for every single promotion, every single growth opportunity, every single raise. And yeah, I've gotten no's along the way. But when you actually realize like everybody has, even the people at the top have. And so it's more like you just have to get comfortable with it. And I think that's something that, I think we need to normalize this conversation. That's why I'm like so excited we're talking about this today. And I think you yourself like raise such important topics around this. And two, like normalize the conversation, and two, help women develop the skills to be able to have these conversations. Because if we don't ask, people are going to assume you don't want it. And I know to us it sounds absurd. Like, of course I want to make more money. Of course I want to get promoted. But people are so focused on themselves. And also the easy way for them is like to not give it to you.
Yes.
And so you need to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I was going to say your manager is so busy. They're like not thinking about you. They are thinking about the success of the team though. So this is why when you tell them about your great work, don't think of it as self-promotion as much as it is giving them the ability for them to get more money for themselves and their team, right? Like their success is entirely contingent on your success. So they want to hear all the good stuff that you've done. But yeah, they're thinking about their own growth plan. So it's actually a big relief when somebody, if somebody more junior comes with, hey, here are suggestions for how I can move up or ways that we can improve processes. And it's just a matter of a yes or no, or picking between options. Like this is not bothering anybody. It's a relief to get it if it is presented, with context, research, thoughtfully, and company goals in mind. A question that I've asked everybody who's joined in my lives is, fundamental elements of becoming your own biggest champion in work, money, and life. I know, all of us approach it in different ways. And so far, all the answers I've gotten have actually been different, which is very cool. But the underlying, the through line with all of it is it comes down to self-advocacy, again, expressed in different ways. So for you, what would you say for somebody listening would be, those like universal basics: money, work, life, being your biggest cheerleader?
Yeah, I think it's really like you have to own your own career development. You have to own your life, whatever that, all these 3 buckets that you just laid out. And what I really mean by that is like, even at work, like even if you have the best manager, you are going to be the best advocate for yourself. Ultimately, you're the one who's going to win out. So why aren't you in the driver's seat? And that, too often I hear like, yeah, but my company doesn't offer this training. My company won't cover this professional development program. My company doesn't have, my manager didn't put me on this project. But that is the wrong way of thinking about things. You should be thinking about like, okay, where do I want to go in my career? What is my career plan, or how much money do I want to make, or whatever that is for you? And then what do I need to do to get there? Maybe you need to go develop some skills. Maybe you need to go have a new experience. Maybe you need to start working on a certain type of project in the company, whatever that is for you, a new domain, a new region. And then how am I going to get there? And if your company is not going to create the opportunity for you, how will you create the opportunity for yourself? The people who are the most resourceful and actually take full control of their career, that's what gets them to the top. And fine, maybe you don't want to become CEO of a company one day. That's fine. But if you want to move up at all, you have to seize control of your own career, especially right now in this market when companies are so focused on cutting costs or like, just probably super sensitive to like, but this is actually the time that you have to stand out. This is the time that you have to be seen as irreplaceable. So you have to be able to take control in your own hands around it. And, I interview a lot of like really senior women leaders, CEOs at top companies, execs at Fortune 500 companies. And the common theme is around like, even though like many of them struggle with self-doubt too, even though we looked at their LinkedIn profile, and we're like, you have it all together, like this leadership role here. And then, they also, so many of them struggle with self-doubt. But the big thing that differentiates them is like, they have taken steps to manage it, to not let them hold back. And they've taken steps to like advocate for themselves and ask for a position. So like you have to own your own career. And as part of that is you have to believe in yourself. If you don't think that you have a good idea, if you hold back on speaking up in meetings, then why should your manager ask you to speak at a leadership meeting? If you don't believe in yourself, or if you're not asking for that raise, or if you're like already kind of undercutting yourself on like that salary ask, well, then how can you expect the company to give you that money if you don't even think you deserve that money? And so that's like, I think that's like a big part of like really owning your career development as part of that, like just believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask a question that I don't fully yet know the answer to myself. So you take command of your career, you take command of your circumstances, but how do you not get caught in the trap of feeling like you're in control? Because then when something happens or you're told no, it's really easy to take it personally, right? So I do find there's like a slight balance or nuance between the like, I am taking command and I'm taking responsibility for my life, but I'm also kind of letting go and allowing for whatever happens is going to happen and not being so rigid in the expectation of a certain circumstance. So maybe it's a question maybe of like expectations. I don't know, but something I've been thinking a lot about. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's a great question. Everything we've talked about here is focused on like, do what's in your control. I think that's a really important thing to realize. Like for me personally, I'm like, I'm going to put my 110% in for what's in my control. Like I was sharing earlier, I've made ask for salary raises, titles that I've gotten no. And that's out of my control.
Right.
And so really where I think how I think about it and is really around like, what can I do in my power to take control of my career?
Mm-hmm.
And that way, when I am getting told a no, I'm more okay with it because I'm like, okay, at least I've done everything that I could do.
Right.
And there's certain circumstances around it. And the other thing to understand, like everybody has failures. One of my favorite questions that I ask in this women in leadership chats I do with like senior executives is like, tell us about a failure, because we always celebrate successes. You go on social media, everyone's like, this happened to me, I got promoted and I have this beautiful life and I like go on this really fabulous trip. But in reality, like there's so many more mistakes, failures that are happening along the way. And I think that's a really important thing to also realize. Like when you get told a no, that's normal. If you're getting told yeses all the time, then I would ask yourself, like, am I challenging myself enough? Because it's not normal. It's not gonna happen.
Right.
So really like taking control of what's in your like realm of possibility, and then just realizing like, no, it's just part of the game.
Yes. Yeah. Or no is a not yet. Right. And it gives you more opportunity to learn about yourself, about the company, about the process, and how to, make the ask stronger next time. In the final minute, I would love for you just to tell folks how to get in touch with you and maybe most importantly, how to pay you. Ladies get paid. So yes, how do they get involved in your program and, all that good stuff?
Yes, definitely. So I come join us in Arise Leadership. It's a 6-week online leadership program where you're going to get to learn with a community of high caliber, low ego women from the best companies in the world and really develop practical skills to help you get buy-in, push back against dominant personalities, tackle imposter syndrome, and really get a seat at the table and get promoted. And so you can check us out at ariseleadership.com, ariseleadership.com, and then follow me on LinkedIn, Shivani Berry. I share a lot of advice there too. So thank you so much, Claire, for this opportunity.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate you and all your work, of course. And for everybody who's listening, watching, appreciate you too. Now go get paid.
Bye, all. Take care.